Right, let's fucking crack on.
Hello and welcome to Pub Goth Transmission. Today we are going to be talking about, well, I've got a bit of a celebration I'm going to mention. I'm going to talk about bullshit jobs a little bit. Then Adam's going to get into a big fuck off fat rant about technofascism and about how he was right about everything and how that sucks. And then I'm going to talk about what the fuck is going on in Syria and what the fuck is going on in Argentina. Because the fucking news ain't going to tell you, is it? Anyway, today, as always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Dr. Adam C. Jones. How the ruddy heck are you doing, son?
Fucking shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Briefly, because just why fucking shit?
So, I have been writing for about the past 5 years now on these very niche, highly online digital weirdos with way too much money. And I'm like, hey guys, these people are really well coordinated and they've got lots of money and they're putting lots of money into scholarships for people to sort of perpetuate their goals. They've got a lot of military contracts with the Pentagon. They've got a load of contracts with Britain, with the NHS and with our police services. And I think they might be gearing up to do something good. Something good. It's something really fucking massive, something fucking evil. And after 3 books in, I'm like, okay, this is going to get bad. And then suddenly, Trump comes in, Musk takes over, God knows how much and of the federal government. And he does so with the help of a bunch of teenagers called Big Balls or Aryan Cumshot 1488 or whatever. And they're all part of the network of funding all of those things that I was warning about for the past 5 years and saying, hey guys, this is actually quite dangerous. We might have to sort of look at organizing in these sort of online and tech spaces. Most people thought I was fucking insane. And I wish I was fucking insane because this is the worst thing to happen is that I was right. I would like to be wrong on this, but no. And you could read about this in all of my books, but don't read them because the company that puts them out turns out is owned by a genocidal Zionist AI venture capitalist who is probably training his dastardly machines on my works about how they're bad. So yes, technofascism very much ascendant. Welcome to the Fourth Reich, folks.
Yeah, and I'm actually feeling quite jubilant. On the other hand, I officially got offered a new job this week, which means that I was able to hand in my notice for my current job, and that means I only need to carry on work there for 3 months because that's just how it is in my industry. And basically, I wasn't really happy with my job because, I mean, I don't really want to talk about what it is because it's boring and it takes too long. There's too much law. When you work in a corporation, it's too niche to actually explain what you do. So if you like football, I was a right back in a pretty good team. And then I got offered a position as centre midfielder in a Premier League team. And I took it. Turns out I fucking hate being a centre midfielder. I like being a right back and I suck at it. I've been stuck at centre midfield for 2 years now. And I've just got fucking offer or whatever they want to sign me. That's the language they use. An equivalent direct rival team. I'm currently at Man U. I've just been given a signed to Chelsea as right back again. Yes. And what that actually means, or like I was playing bass for an all right band and I got an offer to play guitar for a much bigger band. I fucking hate guitar. Now I've been offered a role to play bass in an equivalent one. So just because like what I'm actually going to explain, my actual job is going to be really boring and technical. That's just like the quicker way of me explaining it. But I was a database programmer, and that's what I'm calling it. But sometimes they call it data analyst. Sometimes they call it data management. Sometimes they just call it consultant, because that word doesn't actually fucking mean anything. It just means whatever you want it to mean. And what I used to do was I'd have data sets full of medical data and I would do research on it. So I'd be like, here's a bunch of rows of data. I'm going to write some code that's going to find the patients who have myasthenia gravis. Why did I pick such a weird diagnosis? But it's a hot item at the moment. So I need to find the patients, and then I need to find out like how many of them had kidney failure. How long was it on average before they would die or whatever, or like healthcare resource utilization, how many times they go to hospital. So like standard post-clinical trial medical research sort of stuff. I was the guy crunching the data, and I liked it, and I took to it, and I was good at it. And then I got basically offered to be a project manager who, instead of, it's not like a higher position. It's not like when you're good at sales, you move into like sales manager. It's just like a different position. It's like same, but instead of being the person like doing the actual work that does something, you tell other people to do work and organize them and fill in various documents and checklists and labor forecasts and resource schedules and make sure the latest list of SOPs has been downloaded, and make sure to manage the client communications. And for every client meeting, of course, you need to have a slide deck with slides saying, today we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about that. And then afterwards, you have to convert the PowerPoint into a PDF and send it to the client as part of our, quality management system in line with our SOPs. It's agreed as part of the contract. And of course, you have to make sure that whenever there's a deliverable that you've got the latest QC checklist downloaded. You have to then send it to the relevant team member and the principal in charge. They have to sign off that it's the correct checklist. And then you have to save their email in the folder as proof. And the thing is, right, you might think we also need to make sure that we spend 85% of our time a week on billable work, right? That includes like a study, right? And so we record our hours every week. And if you don't have enough stuff to do, you basically have to do what we call value-added tasks, like basically these things I just mentioned. So, I need to check that the project team list is still up to date. Oh, one of my favorites, risk management. You have to manage a risk log where you have to list out the potential risks in the study, sort of rank how imminent or possible they are, and then write down mitigation strategies. Now, the idea of managing risk makes complete sense. The idea of doing that is just, it's work that is invented by people in positions like mine so that people like me can have a job. But not me, because I fucking suck at it. I fucking suck at it because I'm not an organized person. I need to be organized by somebody else. I'm the talent, goddammit. I'm not the manager, okay? I need to be reminded and told what I'm supposed to be doing from moment to moment. I'm not a very communicative person because I have a bit of social anxiety with that, which, again, horrible trait to have as a project manager. And I, unfortunately, unlike many of my team, have the really painful thing of recognizing that 90% of our job is complete and total fucking horseshit and does not need to be done at all. Like, I have somebody telling me, like, and I don't harbor any ill will against employers. It's just they believe they drink the Kool-Aid to an extent, right? But I remember like being told you have to make sure that the the study master file is up to date, which means a copy of each file in its own folder that we send to the client at the end, right? And you have to make sure that you got to make sure you're doing all these quality tasks. It was called quality tasks, right? They have an entirely different definition of the word quality, which has nothing to do with the idea of quality. What they mean is pointless bureaucracy so that we can have a job. That's what quality is. And she said, you have to do these tasks, very important. And I was waiting because you have to do them because, and I was really curious to know what the because was, because we might get audited and then they'll see that the boxes haven't been ticked. So I was revisiting David Graeber's Bullshit Jobs, which I think is a great book and a really important topic, because in the deindustrialized countries, what the fuck are we all still doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing? We're inventing checklists so that to tick and check. And I fall into category 5 of David Graeber's taxonomy of bullshit jobs. I'm a taskmaster, right? So I basically invent work for myself and other people to do to make it look like I have a job. Now, you might think there's a flaw in this, right? You might think, surely, like this, in maximizing shareholder value and increasing profits, they'd want to get rid of people that they don't need, like you. Right. But who controls the flows of information? Who is the measurer here? It's me, motherfucker. I may be a resource, but I'm also the resourcer. So whenever we're finding, it's me, I'm the one tasked with finding efficiencies. And you're like, I don't know why we're so inefficient. I can't possibly see what it is here that's making us so inefficient. We need to get rid of something. But what is it? What do we need to get rid of? Like, literally, I'm part of a profit. I've sunk so many hours as part of the profitability task force, and like, there's all this bullshit management stuff. Like, it really is joining a corporation. I mean, I'm not the first to say it is like joining a cult. And like, I remember pretty much for the first year, and even still, I struggle to suppress a smirk constantly if I'm in the office, and then I have the moment afterwards, like, wait, it's not a satire. This isn't satire. Like, they do really operate as satires themselves. And again, it's not just tasks you have to make up. You have to reinvent the English language. Like I said, quality has to have a whole new definition. You know, you don't just meet up to agree on things, you align on things. And then you have to invent, like in consultancy, you have to invent this whole, it's like that fucking George Carlin bit about soft language, if you've seen it. Like, okay, well, we can't say that the study has weaknesses. What about limitations? No, we can't say. We'll say that it has considerations, right? And don't say that we're suppressing the numbers, because say that we're masking them, you know. And it's just like this entire, oh my god, and synergies. The fucking word.
I fucking hate that word.
Efficiencies. It's not. You're not producing something that's greater than the sum of the parts. That's what DJs do when they mix a track into another track, and it's sick and it's greater than that synergy, not your boring shite. And anyway, there's 3 or 4 different types of people in this situation that I've noticed, right? There's what I call the true believers, there's the grifters, there's the institutionalized, and there's the sort of analytical skeptics, right? So number 1 is the true believers, and to be honest, they suffer. They actually drink all of the Kool-Aid. They fucking neck that shit and then ask for seconds, right? And they work themselves to the bone, straight to burnout, because they really believe in what they're doing, and they really believe in the checklist, and they really believe that they have to do this stuff, and it's really important, and they really think that they're adding quality and creating synergies, and they buy into the fucking cult. And I know we don't like him anymore, but Zizek says something about this, that the most effective people in ideology, the people who have a little bit of sort of cynical distance from it, rather than the people who are in on it. But yeah, those are the people who probably, they can create value, but they also waste a lot of time because they kind of have too much of a tunnel vision in believing in the system. Right. The second one is the grifters. They recognize that this is just bullshit, and they just plot out the exact easiest way to advance, right? For example, you have to set your goals, right? You always have to set your goals. I have to set my goals. Little did they know. But yeah, I had to set my goals. And it's like, you have to, the true believers will make the terrible mistake of setting actual goals that they want to achieve, rather than setting things that you've half already done or have already done, just so you can tick the box, say you've achieved your goals, because it affects your bonus, right? And this is incredibly telling, right? Mate of mine at work told me that he had done his goals, and his manager come back and said that your goals aren't ambitious enough. And his manager rewrote his goals. He did not actually change the substance of the goals. He simply changed how they were described. That fucking sums up all of it. Like, so then you've got people that institutionalized. Some motherfuckers have worked in these companies 20 years. That's like a hybrid. They kind of know that it's that part of it's bullshit. They always say, well, you got to kind of play the game, but they just think that this is reality because they haven't seen anything else for so long. They don't realize that work doesn't have to be this much bullshit. And that's the difficulty with me. You know, when I was a right back at Derby Football Club. No, I mean when I used to be a programmer at a smaller company, we did the same work with half the team with none of this complete and utter bullshit, and we did a better job. And like, yeah, so it's just I just feel like I need to get all of this off my chest now that I've resigned, because not that anyone really is going to hear this from my fucking work, but I just have to get. I feel like this is a capstone. Like now that I can analyze this and say, what the fuck have I been doing for the last 2 years? What the fuck is that job? I'd say I'll stop ranting about my job after one other point I want to make, right? Because these things might seem really specific, but I think some of these ideas are quite generalizable. I'm sure people listening who have a similar role will have similar shit going on, right? It's really common for companies to have timesheets, right? You fill in what you spent each hour doing at the end of the week. The thing is, right, if the timesheet was like an amnesty timesheet, or like they were saying, you just record how much time you spent on these projects. And that's what on my old company it was like. Just record how much time you spent on these projects, just so we know and we can use that to figure out how to like price it next time. That makes fucking sense. If you were working in some fucking utopian anarchist tomato growing collective, you might still want to do things like that, so you can figure out like, how much work does it take to do all of this, right? But you probably wouldn't, because it's more about pricing. But the trouble is, then you say, but you have to fill in at least your contracted hours. So you have to put in at least 37.5 hours each week. So it's like, okay, well, if you don't do 37.5 hours, you're not going to not put that, right? Secondly, you're marking your own homework. You're marking your own fucking homework. And if you've got to get an 85% utilization figure, then you're just going to bill more time against billable codes instead of non-billable stuff so that the numbers look right. So you've got perverse incentives like I say, you're marking your own homework, and there's perverse incentives to make you not record what you actually did. And they even tacitly admit this. They'll be like, utilization figure for the team's quite low at the moment. Make sure you're really billing all the time that you spend on those projects. You know, don't underbill it, which is a sort of wink, wink. And it's like, hang on a second, though. Our entire system of information, our entire system of how we decide things is using these fucking hours that we all know is fucking bullshit. We all know, we all make it up at the end of the week and everyone's lying. And yet we pretend that this is a figure we can use to plan and organize things. It's just so fucking stupid. But no one speaks out because you don't want to lose your fucking job.
Yeah, all of this corpo sort of fucking theatre is just ultimately because the point of most of the services economy is just to keep money in circulation, just keep money exchanging between hands. They can scoop a little bit off of the friction, because at the very least it does take labor to move money around, and that's where the surplus fucking value comes from. And ultimately, a lot of it is just trying to convince either whoever's paying you or the stupid fucking cunts, usually the cunt executive officer, the CEO as we call them, at the top, who traditionally, right, would be a fucking idiot. Usually, like, their dad would found the company, and then they would be kind of an idiot, but somewhat competent. It'd get passed down to whoever fuckwit son they had, kind of like Succession. And basically, they wouldn't have any ideas. They would just, like everyone else, sort of suck up to the mad boy king in order to keep their jobs. Because if you become even more precarious, you're kind of fucked. It's hard to get back up. And so ultimately, what happens is that everyone just like makes it look like they're very busy. And then occasionally the little boy king for the CEO will come down and be like, how's everything going, guys? And they say, I've had an idea. And because everyone else knows actually how to work everything, they'll go, hi, yeah, this is great. Oh, this is so great, sir. We've put your idea up on the fridge so everyone can look at it. And then the problem is now the money now has ideas. Way too many ideas. It's just like the fifth generation of fuckwit fail sons who've just inherited companies or won them like with stupid like bets on like fucking like startups in the era when loans were basically free because the interest rate was 0, and now they're on their phones getting radicalized all the time.
Or they've somehow risen to those ranks through middle management, in which case they are some kind of freakish psychopath that I can't compute. No offense to my colleagues, but like I'm not saying they are freakish psychopaths, because none of them are probably going to be the chief executives. But if any of my colleagues do make it that high up, then I was right. You were a freakish psychopath all along. You know what I mean?
You have to be, because you have to be able to like
really
sever people off. You know, like you have to see people as fundamentally
you have to be a
disposable.
cult leader as well. Like you are a cult leader. You are fucking Jim Jones.
The
Like
cult leader is either the CEO, but more often than not, it's usually someone like a COO, or a managing director, because they are actually eyeing the top spot. Usually, the guy at the top spot just happened to have it drop into his lap, or rather, he fell out of the right vagina to get onto it because his dad owned the company or something. Like,
yeah,
it is. I don't. I mean, people know that corpo culture is, I guess, vapid, but even now it's vapid, but now it's even more evil. Like before, it was more of a banal kind of evil, whereas now it's just we have to keep the money circulating infinitely. Our jobs don't mean anything. What's it all going towards? And if it's going towards nothing, it's probably not as bad. Whereas now, like billionaires and corporate elites have basically all been kind of radicalized now because they've got nothing to do with their time because their jobs are bullshit. So they just sort of spend their time on their phones getting their brain poisoned by I don't know, YouTube or Twitter or something.
Yeah. But though, Peter Thiel, right?
Oh, I'm going to talk about fucking Peter Thiel. You talk about Peter Thiel.
I've got a theory about him though. Did you see, like, one of the best videos of Peter Thiel was the video when he was on the news being interviewed after Luigi Mangione, well, allegedly Luigi Mangione.
Allegedly, free my man, he didn't do it.
Free my man. Anyway, the man who did do it, they were talking about Brian Warner's assassination.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, the man was like fucking, have you seen it?
Yeah, he's so sweaty and he's so terrified. And I fucking love that.
Bro, I reckon you just have to pop. I don't think you have to get that man. I think you just have to pop a few more like minor guys like Brian Warner and he'll have a heart attack.
Oh, I fucking hope so. I mean,
yeah.
Should we get into the Peter Thiel? Because I have a lot to tell people about fucking
Let's go, Peter Thiel.
Peter fucking Thiel, right? Now, he's not a fucking evil genius. He's smart enough to work to get what he wants, but that's because he doesn't have as many obstacles because he's really fucking rich. Now, Peter Thiel, right? I don't think his name is actually Peter Thiel. I think it's pronounced like, because he's German, I think it's probably pronounced like pedophile. So pedophile. No, Peter Thiel. He's a German man, a German American man who was also lived for a long time in occupied Namibia, being occupied by apartheid South Africa, because his dad, of course, was a manager in an illegal uranium mine there. So you know why him and Musk are cut from the same cloth, although they don't really like each other. No. He is the founder and CEO of Palantir, also one of the guys who co-founded PayPal. Now, Palantir are pretty much the most evil corporation, or at least the most ominous one I can think of in our contemporary. There are probably ones that are more evil, like your Norfolk Grummans and your fucking.
But they're more like what's that word? They're more emerging, nascent.
Yeah, they're the new evil. Like
they're eyeing up the entire military-industrial complex in the US.
They have Pentagon contracts.
Spot. They're looking
they have
the Raytheon spot. They're looking to take the Lockheed Martin spot. They're saying we can do it much cheaper.
Yeah, Peter Thiel is like a libertarian guy who thinks that democracy and freedom aren't compatible. He's very much into Curtis Yarvin, who's like the main sort of ideologue who gave out, basically laid out the roadmap for what Musk is doing with the state. And currently, he founded a company called Palantir, which is named after that.
Can I just say, Curtis Yarvin looks shit in a leather jacket. He just looks like a dick.
He looks like, he looks fucking disgusting. So what Peter Thiel did, he founded Palantir, which is named after the Seeing Stone that fucking Saruman uses in Lord of the Rings. And he also and that's basically a company that does data infrastructure, drones, so-called AI systems. They do it
It's
for the US
also in charge
government.
of the NHS's federated data system.
Yep, he does a lot of AI. They do a lot of AI stuff for Israel under a new guy now called Alex Karp, who believes all the same things that Teal does. They also recently Leeds police service, police force, whatever. They refused a freedom of information request about their links to Palantir because it would breach national security. Starmer, when he recently went to see Trump at the White House, the next place he went was Palantir HQ. Tom Watson, the formerly deputy leader of the Labour Party, is on their advisory board. Palantir also, Peter Thiel, also fund things like what he calls the Field Foundation, which funds, basically pays young people to drop out of university and work for him. A lot of these people with Field scholarships are now working in Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, basically doing a new book burning of destroying everyone's data if they're trans and destroying Medicaid, destroying everything, basically hollowing everything out. And on top of this, he also helps fund other companies. Like, for example, the founder of Oculus, the VR headset company, or one of the CEOs, not the founder, probably not, a guy called Palmer Luckey, who looks like he looks like a man called Palmer Luckey, started a company called Anduril, another fucking Lord of the Rings name, and they run a bunch of AI.
Lucky, someone with that name is only allowed to run like a putt golf.
Oh, he dresses like it. He's big on his Hawaiian shirts. He's
okay,
big. He only
I
wears
already.
Hang
on. Let's.
He looks like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys. Like, and this guy, Anduril, they also, Anduril also do a lot of work with the UK government, including running AI-based surveillance cameras on the channel. And they also do some stuff for the RAF. So these like incredibly cyberpunk evil companies run by people who are very explicitly fans of. Let's see, fucking Palmer Luckey. This guy goes on rants about how we need a new warrior class to defend the West.
Basically, this guy is telling us we need a fucking warrior class.
Yeah, that's Palmer fucking Luckey. And all of these people have loads of contracts. They are very good at getting what they want. And their ideology, which is essentially that we should run the company like a government. And if you want to leave, it's based on a kind of white flight logic. It believes in eugenics. It believes in a fusion of corporate and state power, which is a classical definition of fascism. And it believes in monetizing the collapse for its own benefit and putting us under some sort of AI-based technocracy. And these people have hegemony over essentially most of the US government, and I would say as well, most of the UK government. Field put forward $14 million, the biggest campaign contribution in history, to get J.D. Vance made VP. That is his man in the White House, as well as Musk and all of Musk's little fellows at Doge. In the UK, Tom Watson and Wes Streeting are people who Palantir basically have fucking paid up to work for them. And these people, these eugenicists, these absolute fucking techno-fascists who want to rule the world, or at least rule the ashes of it, and now have control of the entire NHS data infrastructure.
Yeah, it's not
I warned you.
I shouldn't say openly on this podcast, but probably
if you see Peter Thiel on the street, you should fuck.
Yeah, but also like I could potentially, but maybe I shouldn't say that. Can you just burp that whole thing? Yes,
the whole thing is getting burped. This is all getting burped. If we've had to burp it, comrades, you could probably tell what
you know what? You know what? When we distribute this via torrent, we're not going to have to worry as much about censorship and shit like that, right? We need to start this trend, man. This is how it needs to go. We need to think more broadly, because everything you're describing, right? Did you hear about the guy who basically the Yanks, when they invaded Iraq, they released a series of playing cards that had like the top terrorists that they used to take out. They gave it to the army to be like, these are the guys you gotta kill. And some bloke, I forget the name of his company, or the guy who had a company, decided to do the same thing, but distribute cards of CEOs and
I noticed,
shit that they had done. And he might as well have bombed the fucking World Trade Center with what's happening to him. And they didn't even, they got printed, they got seized. He's been like debanked, like personally debanked, like every account removed. Like that's the thing that I think that sort of keeps me up at night. Like you need, whether you're wealthy or whether you're poor, like you generally need money to fucking survive. And like you just remember that you're just looking at a number on a screen on an app from some random company, and they could just like delete it or turn it off, and there's not really anything you can do about that. You're literally completely powerless. So like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm going to start stuffing cash in the mattress. My belief is always, my long-term plan is to move to the countryside so I can grow, at least be half sufficient. But
well, countryside is also what it's called when you kill Peter Thiel. Countryside.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry, that's an old Piers Morgan joke, so I can't be arrested for that one. But yeah, it's so fucking bleak, man. Like spending like this much time looking at these kind of like techno-fascist ideologies, and like especially because they also fund a lot of like edgy art scenes that like play as being leftist, but they're really rightists. And I was like, so many people like fell for this kind of grift, and I was like, guys,
is actually like Unheard and that kind of stuff.
Oh, Unheard of more funded by the Hungarian dark money, but yeah, Teal funds like Compact magazine. And I'm like, they say they're like a new radical like magazine for the left and the right, and I'm like, guys, it's just the right. Like I can point to you like excuse me, that's guilt by association. I'm like, no, it's called following the money.
It's also just a thing called like some people think that the world should be a place where some people are above in power of other people, and some people think that shouldn't be the case.
And we're seeing it happening right now. I mean, fucking all of the people's data in the States being deleted, if just because being trans, it's a book burning activity. Billy was on last episode show. It's book burning. It's like the library of the Institute for Sexual Science being burnt all again, but way more thorough.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is why what we should be. This is the difficulty with this data, right? Is that you don't really hold it. But I'm just thinking, like, can people get copies of this shit? Like, your medical records, your medical consultations. Keep the bit of paper. Don't just like forget about it and get it all soaked with coffee and then just like chuck it in the bin. No, file it away somewhere sensible. You have to use a proper file. Just have a stack of paper and divide it with Post-it notes. That's what I do, right? Because again, you might log on and they just deleted your medical account because they could just do that. You just turn it off. And with your own files, save it, put it on a big hard drive somewhere. Like Netflix, they could just turn it off, get a big hard drive and get torrenting done.
Oh, mate, the amount of like
take it back a little bit.
Been in the queue for just get any kind of trans healthcare for years, and like, oh, sorry, we lost your application. It's the purpose of the system is what it does. This machine kills people. Like I'm just so fucking tired because my job requires me to be very online, or my jobs technically. I have to look at like fucking Twitter and like Blue Sky quite a lot, and so I'm just like looking at techno capital, just like laughing in my face all day, and I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I can't leave these things because there's so many. I have to do it for work, and also so many connections online. It's how we keep with people, and that's one of the things. The way it's kind of a hostage situation to the extent that they sort of made social existence or social like self-consciousness something that you would struggle to have in many ways without these platforms. And then as soon as they get you in them, they close up the borders and then flood it with Nazism. It's the same thing with the supply chain. The just-in-time supply chain is basically set up so that any shocks threaten everyone, and the rich people have the money to buy all the resources they want. So they're kind of saying like, if you want to like attack us at any way, we will just destroy you. And they've always like hedging it on the bet that it'll be worse for us than it will be for them. And so far, they've been successful with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the difficulty is like the totalizing nature of something like social media. While it's around, you have to fucking use it because everyone else is. So you're missing a huge part of social interaction. So the only solution is just to destroy it in its entirety somehow.
I got it. My last book, which if anyone wants any of my books in the slightest, just drop a comment or something or message me and I'll send you a PDF. Don't buy those fucking things anymore. I'm like, I was ambivalent in it between like do we want to destroy the internet or not? And like, actually, at this point, like, or at least if the internet just becomes just a place where platforms are now, and there's no actual anything else that isn't the internet, fucking shut it down.
I mean, I was speaking to you know, the heartening thing is I was talking to someone recently at a meeting, and they just blurted out exactly the same thing. They were like, "Yeah, I really just think we just need to like destroy the data centers." And I was like, "Yeah, good. It's catching on. People are realizing, yeah, we do. We do. We really do." And also, okay, you're gonna have to burp this. This is gonna be. We're gonna need to do a censored and uncensored. And if you want the uncensored version, you're gonna have to torrent it, right?
Mm. We're doing Patreon. We're doing torrents.
No, we're not doing Patreon. We're doing torrents, and you have to ask us personally because we have to know who we're passing out the link to, and we need your word. And we're reintroducing a new thing. There's probably terrible OPSEC called just a little bit of trust, the bro code. Okay, well that's not very inclusive, but the pub goth code. Don't pass that out to anyone who's not cool. The torrent link, all right? Only pass it out or distribute a magnet link. Only distribute it to people who are cool, right? Because if we get in trouble, we'll stop giving you the torrent link.
Yeah. If we get in trouble as well, my books will start selling a lot better, which is really bad because the guy who owns them is a cunt. So don't do that.
Also, you like just disrupt. Wait, actually, because they would do it if they were nefarious, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like someone might disrupt what we want to do, and that would be bad.
Well, it's more, yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's more like a leftist is going to do that, and the rightist is going to do that. I've been scabbed by plenty of lovely self-proclaimed Marxists in my time. Most Marxists are fucking good. I consider myself one of them, but occasionally you do get one who wants to scab to sell their podcast or something. Podcast of beef, we got to do it. But yeah, that's techno-fascism. That's sort of the whole Peter Thiel thing. There's loads of others like him. I mean, I think, like, if you're in San Francisco, run. If you're in New York, run. If you're in London's basically run. They haven't quite fixed it, but like, I think groups like Palantir, who explicitly say like, yeah, we basically want to be like the American imperialist, like AI faction. They do need to be stopped.
Yeah.
For the same reason that the Labour Party needs to be stopped, because they will just make it faster. Like, for example, IBM, International Business Machines, they provided the data infrastructure for the Holocaust, and they were never punished for it.
Yeah.
They literally gave the data processing, the filing processing for Auschwitz, and they were not broken up, and their CEOs and their sort of middle managers were not sent to Nuremberg. They should have been, but like, this is the level of these guys are essential to these kinds of projects.
Yeah, I mean, and you got all of Operation Paperclip, and a lot of the top Nazi scientists being dragged into America to, create the atomic bomb. So the two largest single acts of terrorism in the history of humanity could be exacted upon the Japanese, just to show to the Russians the capabilities and baseless depravity of the Fourth Reich, the American Empire.
Speaking of the nuclear bomb, how do you feel about the new Cold War that seems to be really not heating up, but like becoming a bit more explicit? So the other day, right, I saw an amazing tweet. Sorry. Well, I saw an amazing tweet, which is a really bad way to start a sentence.
It is. I kind of slightly go, ooh, I slightly winced at that phrase.
Well, no. So basically, this is a tweet from the Chinese embassy in the US, right? Which is, this is on March the 5th. The Chinese embassy in the US tweeted this: "If the US truly wants to solve the fentanyl issue, then the right thing to do is to consult with China by treating each other as equals. If war is what the US wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end."
Is that what the Chinese said?
That's the Chinese embassy.
Ayatollah Khomeini said something similar, right? Do you know what's funny, right? This is a little ad here. It's really funny how people keep calling people out. Iranians always call people out for saying like, oh, he said Ayatollah Khomeini. It's been Ayatollah Khomeini since 1989. It's like, why do they have such similar fucking names? Come on, mate.
Nepotism.
Like, you know what you're doing. Like, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. They basically have the same name. Get a grip. Anyway, now someone's going to chime in now and say they're actually pronounced completely differently and make me look like an idiot. Have at me in the comments if that's the case.
All of our Iranian politics enjoyers in the comments, shout out.
Yeah. But he said something similar, like, there's just no point negotiating with the Americans because they're just cunts, which is
True.
Kind of true. Like, the extent to which they just like fuck around and don't, Israel are more blatant with it. Like, I personally don't. I think it's so outrageous of Hamas to expect Israel to like honor the agreement that they agreed to. It's just so ridiculous how they're just like, they make an agreement and then like, yeah, no, we're just not going to do that though because we don't want to. But then I guess actually America did that as well. That's how America was found. Settler colonies, that's like a central tactic. You go, yeah, here's a treaty. Yeah, no, if you just stay there,
yeah,
we won't bother you. And then like 5 minutes later, okay, now we're coming to bother you. And by bother you, we mean genocide.
Things were a little bit better when there was a nuclear-armed group of communist states that had aimed directly at the US to maybe get them to do some things they wanted to do.
Yeah.
At least when they were competing, because at least ideologically, I think I mentioned this before on the show, the kitchen debates between Nixon and Khrushchev, and they're like debating about how better of a quality of life each person has in the US and USSR. And I'm like, whereas now it's like competing towards who can suffer more.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not woke. We don't need food or medicine. We're tough. Whereas now it's competing of who can lose the most to enrich the upper strata of their society. Well, no, that's not the case in China though. It's mostly the case of the states being like, okay, we are just going to make ourselves suffer as well as us because we are the 51st state, not Canada yet or Greenland, but us.
Yeah, no, it's true, and like. The thing about nuclear arms, I always think, is I'm never quite convinced by the nuclear deterrent idea so much, in a way, because conflicts tend to follow an escalation ladder, and a nuclear weapon is just so far that it's like you kind of have to have every intermediate step before you get there for it to be part of it. But like by the time you got that far, like because I would kind of, this is my personal words. I'm being a corporation. I'm inventing new language, but I kind of make a distinction between what I call like a purely military weapon, and I don't believe that a nuclear bomb is there are tactical nukes, I guess, but like generally speaking, the big fuck off nuclear weapons that people are terrified of, they're terrified of them because they're not military weapons. They're purely terrorism weapons. You can't just attack. Like use it as that's why they call a tactical nuke a tactical nuke. Any other type of nuke is just a weapon of terrorism. It's not a weapon of military. You can't like just hit legitimate military targets with that. That's a weapon you use purely out of threat and terrorism. Is that really war anymore? Like, I don't know. For me, like war involves actual military shit and strategy and like tactics, even if it's like hitting supply lines and stuff like that. This is just straight terrorism. It's like, do I say, or I'll completely annihilate an entire city full of people? And I think this is the thing that we get wrong about war. If you look at, like, say, how, I think Israel gives us a good example of how, like, what war actually means. Like, Jenin, for example, if you look at the footage coming out of Jenin, they've made it look like Gaza. All they want to do is destroy stuff and they want to kill a lot of people, but a lot of people seem to be killed kind of incidentally, just to destroying stuff. We just want to wreck up the place. We want to go into people's houses and wreck up the place. I mean, literally, they just want to destroy shit. And it's like, I'm willing to destroy stuff than you are. I actually was reading an article I only read a bit, I skim read it in The Tablet, which is some bizarre Zionist website. I was looking for another article, but I couldn't find it. And I came across this one. Basically, it was arguing in a nutshell, America keeps losing wars because they're not willing to drop nukes anymore like they were in World War II. And it was obviously used as a way of justifying Israeli genocide. But it's just like, what I don't get is it's like, if you're actually talking about your objectives and what you're trying to do, this doesn't work. Like, nothing like Israel's reached beyond the levels of depravity with terrorism and destruction, achieved fucking nothing in terms of like they can't beat Hamas, so it makes their military look weak. They can't get their captives back. They couldn't take a fucking inch of territory in Lebanon without getting fucking wrecked. But what they can do is wreck up the place a lot. But it's like, why do people think that this is a worthwhile endeavor?
Because because Israel are fucking bullies. But I know it's a very like childish like to say, oh, they're bullies, but they are just bullies who just haven't been told no.
I guess
since
it just
Reagan.
comes down to that.
And they're like, I can't have it, no one can.
No, and they got worse.
Yeah, so they're just like, oh no, the Arabs could do it even more, and they've had fucking nukes for decades. I can't remember who the fuck gave them nukes
from America.
Oh, okay,
they stole the uranium from America. I think it's like I don't know if it's completely confirmed, but it's widely believed.
Told them no,
they nicked fucking uranium from America, and they fucking blew up the USS Liberty. Why is America such a little fucking bitch when it comes to Israel? They're so whipped. How did Israel pussy whip Israel like this? It's mad. Sorry.
It's the evangelical lobby, because the evangelical lobby think that they have like this really anti-Semitic like belief that like Jewish people have to control Jerusalem so that the world will end, and they will either convert to Christianity or be killed. Like the evangelical lobby is hugely I mean, Zionism was like brought to ascendancy by Anglophone like WASP, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant fuckers who thought that it was a good way to like end the world, or for example Anglo philo-Semitism, like famously traditionally having a belief that, you know, that the English were like the lost tribe of Israel or something. I mean, this is why there's so many like legends about like somehow Jesus somehow coming to the UK. That's what the song Jerusalem's about. Yes.
Time, walk up on England's mountains green.
That's about Jesus somehow making it to Glastonbury.
Holy Lamb of God. Yeah, it fucks though.
It's a banger song. The Paul Robeson version.
Oh, have you? Oh, I haven't heard that, but
Paul Robeson sang Jerusalem to the Welsh mining communities, and he also did his own version of the USSR anthem. But like, no, Paul Robeson.
I've heard that, yeah. But I was thinking of a much lamer version, which is Bruce Dickinson's version of Jerusalem.
Yeah, but but if he sings it, it's probably fucking shit. Because for most people that sing Jerusalem, don't get the fact that it's a William Blake poem about how England is fucking shit. Because it's about it's like, oh wait, you're telling me that like Jesus like came to England? It's like, what do you think? Because it's it's like, was Jerusalem builded here amongst these dark satanic mills?
Yeah,
just like, oh okay, so it's like, oh yeah, industrial capitalism is fucking satanic. And then everyone in England's like, oh, this is great. It's but Jesus fucking loved this place. And they're like, what's a mill? Because it's been deindustrialized. And like, what the fuck's a dark satanic mill? I don't know. Must be something woke or something. But no, like the absolute lack of historical consciousness that is really it's engineered into Britain. It's why for example, like people fucking hate media studies. Because media studies is seen as being like they think of it about going on fucking talent shows. Really, it's about the sort of legacy of cultural studies started by people like Stuart Hall that tries to understand the way that the media and like the cultural history is a way of shaping our consciousness of history and our collective abilities to change things in history. But that sounds I don't know, woke or something. So apparently we can't historical consciousness, that's woke. Apparently we can't have it. Healthcare, woke, we can't have it. Rights, woke, we can't have it. Sorry. It's woke, apparently can't have it. Air. Will air be woke soon? Food's
got to be going woke soon.
Yeah.
To be fair, no, I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of goth carrots. I was thinking of woke food.
Well, it's weird how like when they say, oh, it's like woke stuff like quinoa, or like they say, what's English food? None of this foreign muck, and it's like it would just literally just be the aisle in Tesco's or something for anyone who's just like not fucking like a white Anglo who boils all their meat.
Well, do you know what though? Tesco is way too woke though. Like, no, legitimately, Tesco is way too woke in the way that it lays out its food. Because I don't know if it's woke or racist, but it will have like different like world food sections, but in different ethnicities. And what this means is if you're looking for if you're in a big one, like the one in Bromley by Bow, which I haven't been to in like 7 years, but like I remember this. If you want like a can of coconut milk, you can either go to like the Chinese section, the Japanese section, the Caribbean section. So you've got to go to like 5 different aisles to compare the prices of coconut milk, and it's like it's just not. It's way too woke. You've gone way too far into segregating the different, trying to serve the different local ethnicities in the community, and you don't realize how it impacts a local white Anglo community who just wants to know what the best value coconut milk is, so that I can culturally appropriate Indian food.
That's what I end up doing. I usually end up going to like what usually labels the African section to usually get a bunch of like beef suya mix, like spice mix, and then just whack that on a steak. That's not how you properly make suya, but you gotta have like peanuts and skewers and stuff. But it is fucking good.
I think
beef
if a
suya is
Caribbean
fucking
person
underrated.
saw how I made jerk chicken, they'd spit on me.
Oh,
it does taste good.
I misuse Ethiopian berberine as a spice to death. And I'm not sorry. It's the best thing to put on anything. Ethiopian food, folks. It's really fucking good. Probably, Ethiopian / Eritrean. It's that whole region. Injera, I guess we should probably call it.
I nearly got invited to a wedding in Eritrea, but they said they'd invite me, and I'm sure that they intended to. But then they probably were like, "We can only invite a certain number of people. We're not going to invite him, are we? We don't know him that well." Which is completely fair enough. There's no ill will, but it would have been good to go to a wedding in Eritrea.
Oh god, the food! I've always wanted to go to you ever heard of a Turbo and Tibbs bar?
Is it related to Derek Tibbs?
It is. It's always Derek Tibbs, but it usually is. Yeah. So Tibbs for Conrad's is just like this beautiful stewed or grilled cubes of meat, and there's these.
I love how he was talking about nuclear war, and now we're talking.
I'm trying to cheer myself up because I'm really fucking angry all the time.
We need to sort of ebb and flow on this one, guys. It's tough, you can't just go bareback, just driving into like techno-fascism and nuclear war. You gotta just
Oh, we're coming back to that. We're going to concentration camps after this bit. But I'm just saying that straight up, these bars, they make a thing called Turbo, which is white wine, Sprite, beer, and then Ted, which is like mead, all in a big fuck off picture. And it's just that and Tibbs.
That's an Ethiopian thing.
Yeah, Turbo and Tibbs. Basically, you just make a cocktail of any booze you have around, and then you just have infinite Tibbs, and that's the bar.
Where is this?
So, this is just in Ethiopia. It's like if you actually Anthony Bourdain goes to Ethiopia, he goes to a Turbo and Tibbs bar. It's just a bunch of dudes chilling, eating nothing but Tibbs and drinking nothing but Turbo.
If anyone listens from Ethiopia and you want to become friends with me so you can invite me over to Ethiopia, that would be great.
Yeah.
Do you know, because there's a weed strain from Ethiopia I want to try called Ethiopian, I think it's called Ethiopian Shashamane, and it's supposed to be pretty strong. Apparently gives you bad munchies though. I don't know if I mentioned this.
Smoking.
Did I tell you? I don't think you'll get that. I don't think you'll be able to get access to the Ethiopian land races in East London. But I was going to say, did I tell you that I've donated $80 to a Kenyan bloke?
Oh, the seed man. He finds the seeds. Yeah.
He's going to Congo to find some rare landrace genetics, and I sponsored $80 so I can get some of the seeds.
I think you're going to need high quality weed for what's coming, folks, because Britain is not a good place to get ill.
No, it's not. And also the country's in such a weak position at the moment, because our defense policy is so shit. Our defense policy has been just do whatever America tells us. They basically run Trident. Trident's not British; it's fucking American.
It needs American permission to launch, technically.
It needs American, and they basically it's fucking American. It's not our nuclear deterrent; it's their nuclear deterrent on our fucking shores. So what else have we got though? Surely we've got we've got a tiny fucking army. It was stripped down to an expeditionary force, I think by Boris Johnson because he thinks it's fucking 1892 or something. And he wants to bring a punch of champagne. And he was continuing the whole Tony Blair thing of launching these aircraft carriers like the HMS Queen Elizabeth. The HMS Queen Elizabeth, it has onboard gyms. That's good, onboard gyms. Onboard gyms where the massive fucking guns are supposed to be because we can't afford them. and we can't afford destroyers to be in the seas to protect this motherfucker. And unfortunately, there's a certain group of fucking nutter Shiites in fucking Yemen who have decided to make gunboat diplomacy completely obsolete. It had a good run, 250 years or so,
Big
but
ups.
it turns out they've made US aircraft carrier after US aircraft carrier have to leave the Red Sea because it could not handle the heat in the Houthi kitchen sun. The fact of the matter is, the anti-tank game has overtaken the tank game, and in a similar way, the anti-ship game has overtaken the ship game. Aircraft carriers are now obsolete. Where do you think the fucking MOD has been putting all their fucking money for, like, since Tony Blair? Into fucking aircraft carriers that don't even have enough guns, that don't have enough
designed for
destroyers.
planes we have.
It's because it's just because we wanted to do a bit of Empire cosplay. I genuinely believe that's one of the biggest reasons why we got involved in Iraq and Afghanistan. Partly because America told us to, and like you mentioned, with the 51st fucking state. And secondly, because we wanted to fucking prove that Britain, we've still got it. We can still go and show the bloody Afghans what's what, and the Iraqis, we'll put them in their place. We've been here before. We know how this goes.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. We wanted to show the plucky Brit has still got it. And then we went to Basra and were fucking useless. And then we went to Helmand Province and we were fucking useless. We'd go to Helmand Province and be like, okay, mate, so where's the Taliban then? And then this like fucking village would be like, they would have a long-standing feud with the village like 3 miles away. They'd say, 3 miles away over there, they're Taliban. And then the British would go and bomb that village, and then that village would fire back, and they would go, oh, well, they must have been Taliban then. And they were basically just settling old blood feuds they were just being played into settling old blood feuds and making a million enemies and having fuck all clue what they were doing. And so basically the British Army's fucking useless. The British Navy's fucking useless. Our whole military is completely obsolete. Our nuclear deterrent is controlled by America. So we're fucked. Even if you're like a fucking flag-shagging nationalist who fucking beats people in the face for not wearing a fucking poppy and has a fucking poster of Lee Rigby in your fucking flat, you're still fucked. You're just as fucked as us loony lefties.
Good. Because Britain is basically a fucking cartel established by the ruling classes of England and Scotland to destroy the rest of the world. And they fucking did. And guess what? Now the chickens are coming home to fucking roost. It's why people didn't really give a shit when Starmer tried bigging up like it was in the Iraq War with his idea of a coalition of the willing, which is a phrase from fucking Bush, to like fight fucking Russia. It's why instead Macron started doing the same speech. I mean, even Poland now are talking about potentially doing a lot more military recruitment and even looking into getting nukes, which they almost certainly won't do. But the European rearmament, now that ever since Munich Security Conference, you know, they're like, okay, the US isn't going to pay for us to do fuck all anymore. European rearmament, I think, is very bad because I don't think it's going to be. I don't think they're actually going to go to war with Russia. I think it's most likely they can use it on fucking spats of each other because a lot of European nations fucking hate each other. Sometimes with fucking rightful reasons, like how Germany just got rid of all of its like magical fiscal spending rules. You know, oh, so it turns out you can do spending. Oh, tell that to the people of Greece you've been fucking destroying for the past God knows how long. The absolute fucking hypocrisy of all of it. I mean, you can't really point out hypocrisy because it's
not this episode, but I'll have to do one episode on like just school our audience on monetary theory. I'll make it interesting. Don't skip that one. I'll make it interesting. I'll spice it up. I'll wear
money is magic
or something.
Money is magic.
Money is basically an elaborate hoax.
It is basically capital is command over unpaid labor. It's basically just a magic command because essentially all the money ends up doing.
If everyone figured out how money works and where it comes from, it wouldn't work anymore. It's a conjuring trick.
What's your monetary theory go to? Are you like an MMT guy?
No.
I think
MMT misses part of the picture. No, I have a sort of more radical idea of it's a kind of a needs-based chartalism where essentially you so it's similar to MMT. MMT and chartalism is basically the same thing. So it's kind of like an MMT, but you the way you fund things is basically you try and publicly fund through the creation of money things that service human needs, like healthcare, housing, education, transport. So you pay for all of that shit by creating money. But if anyone wants, so people don't have to work because those things are provided. But then you think, so why would anyone choose to work? Because you can only get healthcare, education, transport, and basic food. If you want chocky, if you want a pint, if you want champagne, if you want a nice car, if you want anything good, if you want any kind of luxury beyond a basic standard of living, you try and keep you try and keep that bar as high as you can. And it depends on how well the economy's doing. If you want anything luxury, you have to pay for it with money. So you can either work to provide human need to get money, or you can work in luxury industry that would have to be taxed in order to recirculate the money, and because tax is a way of people needing to use your currency, right? That's my kind of radical idea. And you would have a strategy. That would be too simplistic. That would be how it would actually work. There'd be a lot of like myth on top of it, and there would need to be. That only deals with the internal inside the territory. You need to deal with like how your currency holds up against foreign currencies, because autarky is kind of a fantasy. Like, I like coffee. You can't grow it in the UK. I'm not giving up coffee. It's not going to happen. So you try to build solidarity networks with countries. And like, one thing that's really important in my opinion, this sort of filters more of an economic idea. I do really believe in comparative advantage, but only in a natural sense. So like, the classic example David Ricardo gave was, well, in Britain, you can sheep fucking eat the grass, they do well, and you can't really grow wine. And in Portugal, sheep is too hot for the sheep, but you can grow nice wine. So it makes a lot more sense than the British trying to do wine and sheep, wool. I keep saying sheep, I mean wool. And Portugal doing wool and wine. It makes more sense for Portugal to sell its wine to Britain, and Britain to sell its wool to Portugal. That makes sense. The way this argument is implied this day is this country has really cheap labor because they're really heavily exploited. So it's cheaper actually for them to produce all of our shit than us. And it's like, no, that's just because of like global fucking imperial exploitation that has fuck all to do. It's not a natural comparative advantage. So I think that the comparative... What? I can't read that. What is it?
Sorry, I'm holding up a copy. You mentioned David Ricardo, so I'm holding up a copy of Capital Volume 1.
Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah. The stuff on like wool. I mean, so I once heard so it's not on wool, it's on linen. But I once heard, I think it was Matt Crispin describe England in the medieval period as a petro-state for wool. That's basically, and then England basically got most of its money from mostly being a petro-state for wool, and eventually being the last like fortified place that you could drop your money off to on the way to the Americas. Because after that you have Ireland, which is basically being terrorized by the UK, by England, or you have the City of London, and that's basically it. If you're going to leave your money somewhere you know you can come back and get it later, you'd have to leave it with us, or technically them, because we are very much not the City of London.
And you know what? This segues us into a certain topic, because a certain South American country called Argentina recently transferred their gold reserves into the Bank of England, or no, the London Bullion Exchange, or whatever the fuck it's called, right? They've transferred it there. I think the argument is so they can accrue interest on it. But was it Chavez or Maduro? No, I think it was Chavez or Maduro where he asked for Venezuela's gold from London, and Theresa May just went no, and just...
It would have been Maduro, I think, if it was Theresa May. I know, if she was Home Secretary, it might have actually still been Chavez.
I told it gold stolen, but that's probably not how the Western media presents it. It was in 2022.
Oh yeah, it was Maduro.
I think it was Maduro. Maybe I think it was earlier than that. I need to word it in the way that...
earlier than that. Theresa May was involved.
Phrased that.
It's like Venezuelan dictator asks for gold back.
It was Maduro. It was Maduro. Oh, no, no, I think it was Chavez. Anyway, fuck it. Just Google it in your own time, lads. Sorry, I can't get the right link at the moment while I'm live. But yeah, so let's talk about fucking Argentina, because they're really doing a similar thing to America, but they're just really speed running it. So, because Argentina wasn't doing well. And actually, one thing I just feel needs to say while I'm on the topic is I need to dispel that myth that always goes around that Venezuela was one of the richest countries in the world at the beginning of the 20th century. It wasn't really, though. It was, but a country isn't rich, is it? A country can't buy a nice pair of shoes. A country can't fucking buy a new big telly, can it? Because a country's not a thing. A country is a territory full of people. And what actually was going on in Venezuela was you basically had a kind of plantation ruling class and basically a bunch of basically indigenous slaves farming cattle, and they were exporting the beef. And that made them lots of money. So yeah, Venezuela was such a rich country. It was going so well for the people of Venezuela. I bring this up firstly just to dispel this myth that like, oh, before the fucking Peron and the socialists got involved, Venezuela was the rich. It wasn't. It was a fucking slave colony raising beef. Not like slaves in the traditional sense, but basically the indigenous population were.
Haiti was a very rich country before the revolution.
That's the other example. Haiti was like the fucking richest country in the world. It produced all of France's fucking wealth. Oh, but then the slaves had to revolt, and now they're anyway. It's a similar kind of argument, but they were kind of fucked anyway, right? They had a right-wing government that colluded with Trump to take on an IMF loan that would never be able to be paid back. That was basically odious debt and illegal, and undermined Argentina's sovereignty. They weren't able to do what Louis Archie was able to do in Bolivia. Remember that coup in Bolivia when Morales got cooed by some woman who then immediately, Janine Artet or something like that, Janine something, she immediately takes a fat IMF loan for COVID. But then they have another election and Louis Archie fucking boshes them in the election.
And wait, remember what Musk said at the time? We'll coup who we want. We'll coup you again.
Yeah. We'll coup who we want. Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, he's still Elon Musk. He can't do anything like that.
And he's very relevant to Argentina as well. Like that's another relevant because Bolivia has big lithium reserves, Argentina does. But what Louis Archie did, who's like Morales' protege, is basically did the equivalent of taking his massive donkey cock out of his trousers and slamming it on the table as he took the money from the IMF and just gave it back. And said, no, we're not having this. It went against Bolivia's constitution, as does the IMF loan from Argentina. And so she actually got arrested and like prosecuted because she had basically accepted an illegal loan, which is basically also what the previous leader of Argentina did. Not the one before Milei, but the one before that. And then this sort of coalition of a centrist and a leftist took over, and the leftist was like, we're not going to fucking accept this fucking debt because it's odious. But the centrist leader eventually caved to the pressure because that's kind of what they do. And so they got saddled with this odious debt, and servicing this odious debt to the IMF is the main thing. It's like 45 billion. If you look at a chart of the IMF debtors, like a third of it or like a quarter of it is fucking Argentina, just Argentina. It's like all the African fucking debt combined. That's why they've had to service this debt, and it's caused this hyperinflation because they've had to basically print pesos to pay it off, which then devalues it against other currencies, right? And so Milei comes in saying, I'm the anarcho-capitalist, whatever the fuck he called himself, some stupid name, with a fucking chainsaw. I'm going to cut all the waste out, all the fucking... we're going to dollarize the economy and yay. Bitcoin.
He used to dress like a superhero called like Captain Ancap.
Superhero, and he looks like a fucking idiot anyway. And he pretends he's an economist, but all he writes is just a bunch of like Jordan Peterson, just waffly twaddle that doesn't actually mean anything. It's like wooey fucking bollocks. There's a good Unlearning Economics live stream where he goes through all of like Javier Milei's papers and stuff, expecting it to be bad and being shocked by how it's just complete fucking not. It's like that guy what is it? Terrence Howard. The guy's like, no, 2 + 2 it doesn't equal 4, it equals 5, and like goes on these long. That celebrity who like thinks he's reinvented physics and went on that weird rant on Joe Rogan. He's like that. He's like that. Terrence Howard. I'm pretty sure that's his name. or am I just imagining a completely different?
Wow, you telling me you're not afraid? What you telling me you're too afraid to debate the guy who thinks 2 + 2 = 5 in the marketplace of ideas? This is the kind of intolerance that is shutting down debate. And that's actually, Archie. Are you against free speech? Do you think that? Because
Yes.
really, because when you tell me that 2 + 2 = 4, you're actually saying that I can't say 2 + 2 = 5. And if you call me an idiot for saying that 2 + 2 = 6 or 5 or 8 or even 3, you're actually attacking my right to free speech.
Well,
This is
like
the
you don't
logic
have
which
a
has
right
taken
to
over the entire billionaire class.
like you don't have a right to free speech. We're currently on StreamYard, and this will be uploaded to YouTube, and they have regulations on your speech. So
Oh, that's fine though. It's just like how those AIs are currently finding students are being quote unquote pro Hamas, and that's it's just a computer.
I'm
It's like
not
going
pro
to the
Hamas,
job
but
center.
only because saying that I would be pro Hamas on a platform is illegal in the UK. So I'm not saying it.
Well, free speech, which is the thing. All of the people who are really interested in free speech, all the free speech absolutes, they actually really believe in that. You see. That's why
Yeah.
they're all like yelling about your right to say that anyone's right to say anything about Hamas.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is a free speech absolute, isn't he? He's been just absolutely banging on about how everyone should have the right to
Yeah,
openly praise Hamas. That's what he's been doing.
yeah. It's almost like free speech is bullshit. That's actually just a way of holding open an open wound after everyone's already had the discussion, so that it can't be closed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's illegal to deny the Holocaust in Germany. I think that's correct. But
But
there we
unfortunately,
go.
it's not illegal to deny ongoing genocide. It's
No, yeah.
mandated that you can't recognize, you can't say that what's going on.
No, you can, but you might just get sacked for it, and targeted by the press, or if you make any jokes about it, even some of the leftist media like
Well, you might get
Novara.
arrested. Ali Abunimah from Electronic Intifada got arrested in
Yeah,
Switzerland.
yeah, he got arrested in Switzerland. After his family stuff got done.
Yeah.
Some people
Oh,
held
I
a
hear a banging at the
placard.
door.
Well, yeah, some people had a placard with some paragliders on it, and there was a big pylon, and legitimating the idea that these people are somehow terrorists. Cheers, Aaron Bastani. It's great. It's good. It's good that the media, is here to hold the public to account.
I'm kind of glad that I never really liked Novara Media, and they always kind of annoyed me because, like, now they're doing their kind of like Anna Kasparian, the Young Turks turn towards
Yeah, they've been telling their subscriber
reactionary
base to
nonsense.
fuck off for years now, and now they're like, see, this is why the left is going, because we keep calling you stupid idiots and like laughing in your face, and then suddenly, oh look, I've got a book out, and I'm going to go on like all the places that hate you and tell them how stupid you are, and then they're
Yeah,
like,
and even if I thought that everything they said was brilliant, there's still not a single one on there I'd want to go for a pint with. You know what I mean? They're just not likable people, and they just seem like annoying dickheads. Even
hmm.
if they bang on about everything, they just know they're not proper people, and they do this thing. And once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. If they're talking, they end their sentence like this. And it's not just Paul Walker or Aaron Bastani or Ash Sarkar who does it. They all seem to be trained to go down at the end of the sentence. And once you recognize this pattern, it becomes exceptionally frustrating.
Now, you see, Archie, this pattern of speech actually was generated by Top Gear. Because if you recognize it, that this pattern of speaking is the most recognizable pattern of speaking
Yes,
in the world.
in the world. Yeah, you're right. Well, anyway, I don't know how we got there, but to bring it back to Argentina, right? So, because it's
Well, Jeremy
relevant.
Clarkson famously didn't go down well in Argentina.
Yeah. And the reason it's important to talk about this shit, because it's all coming here, baby. It's all coming here, baby. If it ain't here already. But yeah, because Javier Milei, right? He's saying he's going to fix the economy by dollarizing, which he can't really do, and he hasn't done it. And by basically just slashing the state. So he basically just like closed down the Ministry of Education, closed down the Ministry of Transport, closed down the Ministry of Infrastructure, just big fat cuts. And he's partnered with like fascists. But now I just want to show you a graph of the sort of curious case of the funding. Oh wait, yeah, hang on. I had it open. There we go. It's window. That's it. I want to do. I'll just do my entire screen, right, and then I'll flick across. So this is year over year. So the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation basically deleted. Ministry of Infrastructure almost deleted, and that includes like public transport. So like they've just defunded all public transport basically. This is like welfare, education, health, security, presidency, national debt, and then security of intelligence, which is basically police, spies, and military, has been more than doubled. So when people say they want to cut the size of the state, they want a small government, this is what they mean. This is what they mean. They want to take things away from you and then police you more and watch you more and spy on you more and push you around more. That's what that means.
Yep, that's what austerity means. It means that rich people get more money, and it means that the state gets more money to essentially not to help you, but to hurt you in case you fight back. And that's actually a good way of moving it on to the current announcement today, which I'm reading out from Anushka Astana, who's one of the political editors over at ITV. This is the government's welfare shake-up. They call it a shake-up. This is after hundreds of thousands of disabled people were killed by austerity since the beginning of this century alone. And of course, the thousands of people dying due to the pandemic, mostly preventable due to essentially the destruction of the NHS and the care system. So here we go. The government, the Labour Party, because they are the Labour Party, which means get back to fucking work, you cunts. That's what Labour means, apparently. This is the government's welfare shake-up. Over £6 billion pounds worth of savings. This includes making it harder to get personal independence payments. It will also be frozen, so there'll be no rise of inflation. They're going to cut the basic. Sorry, they're going to increase the basic rate of universal credit, unless you have been judged as too unwell or disabled to work. Now, what's interesting as well, Archie, is that they accompanied this with a little video from the Department of Work and Pensions. Now, I'm not going to show the whole of the video. I'm going to show a little slide. It was one image from the video, however, which is I think we might find it to be quite interesting. Right. So this is the still from the video. Okay. So here we go. Here we go. Can we see this on the screen now? It says,
yeah.
This is the. So this is meant to be in the video. I don't know if it's AI generated, but this is the job center. All right. You see these like very big red bricks, and you have that little big black iron gate there with a choice sign in front of it. Now, if you're a person of history like me, you're probably going to recognize the look of that kind of building.
To be a person of history to recognize that.
I don't know. I think this sort of education is going, and so I don't know about you folks, but when I see that, given and I've got an article about this in the International, how many disabled people have been killed by these Labour and Conservative governments. And given how the emphasis on, we're the party of working people and their theory of, political education, political consciousness is all about work. I don't know about you, but that looks a little bit like this. I think it does. I think it really does.
I think it looks a lot like that. It's like, it really does. It's the way they're walking into the red brick building. Because like the other thing is like, what? Well, job center looks like that. I've never seen a job center that looks like that ever. It's like they've gone specifically out of their way to make it look like that.
Now, to be fair, Archie, people might be saying I'm being hyperbolic. Yes, a few 100,000 people may have been killed by austerity.
He's just autistic. He was so paranoid.
No, to be fair, it might not be based on Auschwitz. It might be based on the Victorian workhouse, which is a different Labour camp for the poor. And of course, this is at the time in which they want to bring in assisted dying. They want to bring in assisted dying. Archie, as you muted yourself there. They want to bring in assisted dying, and It's weird. If you bring in assisted dying, and currently they're cutting out anyone who's from the disability rights groups who wants to bring in safeguards to avoid, anyone with disability going to the doctor and then being told to kill themselves because their lives are shit because they've got no support. And we see this happening in places like Canada. It seems like this is all coming together to make a situation in which if you get ill in this country, you're disabled, you have any sort of bodily difference, or your life has been made intolerable by this government, they will not have the resources to help you live a better life. They will have the resources to kill you. Now, let's be fair, that's not Auschwitz. That's Action T4, which precedes it. Because first, in many ways, they did come in terms of the industrial mass slaughter before it was stratified as that. They came for disabled people first. Many of whom would have, of course, been of all the ethnic groups they were targeting at the same time. And of course, in a way, more likely to face disablement, especially if you're like a lower paid frontline worker who's been disabled during COVID. And so I'm not being alarmist. I think this is what's going to happen. Because they've gotten away with killing hundreds of thousands of disabled people before. What's going to fucking stop them now? But we're going to have to.
And it might not happen under Starmer, but it may well happen under Farage in 5 years.
Yeah, that's true. I think Farage probably will be. I mean, I don't know. I think Farage and his lot enjoy the fact that they can basically be running the country because they basically say something stupid, then the media go, "Oh, Farage has said this," and then the Labourers and the Conservatives go, "Shit, we have to do what Farage wants."
Way of running a country.
And so when it doesn't work because the stuff he wants to do is stupid and doesn't work and it's evil, then they get the blame and he doesn't. So I think he probably wants to stay out of power.
I think didn't the guy found at GB News, like he was trying to like get elected or like trying to get people elected for ages. It was getting nowhere, so he just founded a media company and had way more success.
Yeah, he's funding a lot of journalists now. And also, similar to also Munira Mirza, former member of the Revolutionary Commons Party, who was Boris Johnson's main advisor, who is now working for Starmer. Meet the new boss, same as the fucking old boss. Things are fucked, but I don't think things are completely fucked because there are loads of people in this country who are not part of the government, which is most of us, and we do have communities. I've seen raids being defeated. I've seen evictions being defeated. If we all spit together, we can drown the bastards. But we do need to start fucking spitting fucking soon.
We need to start spitting. We need to get arranged.
If you see someone building a data center, put sugar in the concrete. Sugar makes it very hard to concrete to set. This is how French anarchists stop prisons being built. We don't need explosions. Explosions are just fucking foreplay. They're like they're spectacle. Infrastructural disruption.
I had another thought, and I wouldn't suggest doing this on a public podcast. I'm not suggesting doing this, right? Because it would be awful. Because when you think modern day, what is the biggest method of terrorism, and the answer is bombing, right? And bombing is done from planes, and planes have to take off from runways, and runways are made of like tarmac. And wouldn't it be such a shame if some Japanese knotweed got in the runway, and then all the roots started growing up in the tarmac, and they couldn't use it? It would be terrible. But the good thing is, it would take quite a long time, so people would have to be quite ahead of the curve and preemptive if such a terrible thing would happen to the primary infrastructure of terrorism today, which is runways used by F-35 and F-16 jets, which are exceptionally hard to shoot out of the sky, but they need to get in the air first.
If it bleeds, as a great philosopher Arnold Schwarzenegger once said, if it bleeds, we can kill it. But speaking about the roots of fascism as they gradually take over,
bleed, but you can still kill them. You can still take them out.
They got liquids in them. But speaking of the root of fascism taking hold and the growth of a possible new anti-fascist political consciousness to tackle it, you've been doing some growing of your own.
Yes. So I've been growing. Well, I showed you the chilies, right? On the first Instructable. Yeah. And I was thinking for the Instructable this week, I won't do it now, but instead of it, I'll give you an update because they're doing quite well. They're right over there. I've moved them into a propagator. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And obviously, if you're on the audio, it would be a bit dull. I'll try and describe it as best as I can for our listeners, for our dear, wonderful, beautiful listeners. I'll try my best to describe it. Also, in other growing news, my hop shoots have popped out quite early, but they're going. I've got two shoots for my Willamette hops. Last year I got a pretty small harvest, but you only really get serious cones on like year 3. So I'm going into year 2 now. So I'm hoping to have more hop cones this year and make a nice beer with it. And that's something I can keep you updated on the pod. But I'm also I've planted some carrots seeds, and I plan on trying to start a kind of continuous carrot harvest because I've got these long troughs, and I'm going to plant carrots in one, wait 3 weeks, plant the next, wait 3 weeks, plant the next. So then you can sort of, by the time you finish harvesting the last one, the first one's ready again. If I can plant it round, you know what I mean? So if that's we'll see if that system works. It's going to be a great season. I'm also going to build in the communal garden where I've put my raised bed. I've reclaimed some of the land to make my own little allotment. I mean, no one was using it. No one was using the garden, so I built a raised bed. But it got ravaged by local pests, so I'm going to turn it into a fruit cage this year. I'm going to stick in some bamboo canes and fencing and netting and grow some raspberries in there. So I'll keep you updated on that one too.
Dig for victory, folks.
Dig for fucking victory. Like if I was thinking today, if I was because people say, well, if you wouldn't want to be in charge, what would you do? So I think about that a lot, actually. Not that I want to be in charge because I'm more of a bottom-up democracy kind of guy, but dig for victory. I'll bring it back. I'll literally bring it back. It's not just like gardening is not just good for food production. Like I've mentioned this before, like you might think it's a waste of time now, but we've already talked about just-in-time supply lines. Like our current price of chilies that come from Morocco and Tesco is actually quite fucking fragile. And that £1 could become like £3 or £4 quite quickly. So actually being on top of some of this shit, it's worth learning it. But also it's good for your fucking mental health, mate. It's good for your mental health. Just to be with your plants, chilling, watching them thrive, even if maybe you're not doing so great. Slowly they produce these little chilies, they ripen. It's very satisfying. And reintegrating ourselves into food production, I think, would be just good for the species in general. Humans, I mean. So yeah, stay tuned for that update. But another update that is not very nice that I feel I need to talk about at the moment, because apparently I'm now the media, because the Western press it's from last time I checked, have literally not mentioned this at all, but it's all booted off in Syria again. So in Syria recently, this group called HTS, who are kind of like a rebranded Al-Qaeda, or they call themselves Al-Nusra Front, which means to support Al-Qaeda, meaning the base, Sunni Salafist group, led by a guy called Mohammed al-Jilani. He was a deputy in ISIS under Baghdadi, so proper.
He's a moderate, though. He went on the rest is politics. Come on.
No, he was not a moderate, right? He was Mohammed al-Jilani. He was an evil terrorist, and he had a bounty of 10 million. But then he trimmed his beard and he put on a suit and he said, "I'm not Mohammed al-Jilani. I'm Ahmad al-Sharar." And then it was all fine. It's fine now. It's fine now because he's clipped his beard and he's wearing a suit and he calls himself Ahmad al-Sharar. It's literally pro wrestling. He's done a face turn. It's pro wrestling. He's literally done a face turn scripted by the Yanks, the Turks, and the Ukrainians. It's time. And now then they say, and I'm not one of those people who's like a fan of Assad, right? But Assad was bad because he did like suppress protests. I mean, he was a shit leader anyway. He was not supposed to lead because I think his older brother died when Megamind was obviously in charge. Hafez al-Assad. Why doesn't this bothers me about Hafez al-Assad? Right? I don't know if I've mentioned this on the pod before, but this really bothers me. How are people talking about Hafez al-Assad? Right? And I've never seen anyone mention the size of his fucking head. Why is no one mentioning the size of this man's fucking head? I feel like I'm going insane when I'll see a documentary or anything discussing Hafez al-Assad and they don't explain why his head is so fucking massive.
Thank God for cesareans,
Look at it. He's got a head on top of his head. He's got an entire head. If you're listening to this on Spotify or something, please go on YouTube. Don't just Google on your phone, Hafez al-Assad. Look, he's trying to do something with the hair, but it's just, look at this. He's got an entire head on top of his head. So that man clearly had some brain power. That man could control shit with his mind. And he was doing that classic sort of like, mid 20th century, dictator, but doing some social democracy and advancement and blah, 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 blah. But by the time Bashar al-Assad takes over after he's dead, but he's doing like neoliberal reforms and everything's getting shitter and there's a lot of discontent. Anyway, I'm not supposed to be talking about that. I was trying not to go down the Syrian rabbit hole and keep it current. Anyway, Assad was a dick. These people are not any better. They're literally fucking Al-Qaeda. But the Western press are trying to rehabilitate Ahmed al-Jilani, Ahmed al-Sharaa, whatever the fuck he's going to call himself tomorrow. They're trying to rehabilitate him as the leader because they think they can have a pliable leader in the area, right? Some people say they just want chaos. I always believe that that's kind of plan B. Plan A is like a stable comprador regime. And you know that it's compromised because the Ukrainian drone unit, the White Wolves, was literally there, like as part of the operation. About 60% of the people were like mercenaries from like Turkey and like Uzbekistan and shit. And so, this blitzkrieg, they took Syria in 5 days, and the Western press is saying, oh, a new moderate leader. Oh, he's a freedom fighter and he's liberated Syria. And oh my God, there was that reporter, I forgot her name, who did the fake prison rescue. Did you read about that? Oh
God, yeah, I saw it.
I think she's from CNN or something.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Went into one of Assad's evil prisons and rescued a prisoner and he's holding her and he was carrying him out. And he was a fucking acting. He was a fucking intelligence officer. And the whole thing
he was one of Assad's guys.
He was one of Assad's intelligence officers, and the whole thing was a hoax. It's fucking ridiculous. And I'm not saying Assad wasn't a shitbag. He was. But the way they try and craft that, Assad's got another great new regime. It's fucking Al-Qaeda. This guy's got a $10 million bounty on him. Anyway, so they're trying to rehabilitate this fucking Al-Qaeda Mohammed al-Jilani guy and saying he's fine now, he's moderate. And they've obviously got an agreement because he literally allowed Israel to demilitarize the entire country. The most intense air campaign wasn't even against Gaza. It was against the Syrian fucking weapons depots. And they just casually invaded and occupied southern Syria. Oh, no, just for their Druze brothers and sisters. They just went to protect their Druze brothers. That's why they went there.
The same ones they're killing in Lebanon,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's so transparent. It's literally, that goes back to Ben Gurion, that tactic. And Jilani does nothing. And I'm pretty sure, or whatever, Ahmed al-Sharaa, whatever, I bet he was told by the Yanks, if Netanyahu wants to come into your office, drop his trousers and piss in your face, you say, thank you, sir, may I have another? Because there's no way any leader would just take that on the chin. All your weapons being destroyed. But their army's weaker than fucking Lebanon. And that's saying something. The Lebanese army, not Hezbollah. So... Anyway, a lot of people who weren't the West were saying, should we be a bit worried about this? What about all the religious minorities, the Alawites, the Christians, the Shiites, the Druze in fucking Syria? Are these Al-Qaeda nutters not going to murder them? No, what are you not understanding? He's trimmed his beard and he wears a suit. And he calls himself Ahmed al-Sharaa, and he goes on Western press, and they wear a hijab for him. And he says, I just want the best for Syria, not like Assad. He was such a bastard. Anyway, sarcasm aside, today some of the most disturbing footage I've ever fucking seen in my life cursed my eyeballs, right? So a bunch of, on the West Coast, where the Russians still had their ports and stuff, the Alawite minority, so the Assad dynasty were Alawites, a religious minority, similar to the Baathists in Iraq, who were a Sunni minority in a Shiite country. Alawites are an offshoot of Sunni Islam, but the Sunni Salafists hate them. They see them as dirty Muslims, similar to the way they see Shiites, because they're sectarian wankers. And basically, the Alawites, a lot of them are concentrated in the west of Syria. So we'll get the map up. Get the map up.
This is around mostly
I'm trying
occupying
to bore you
southern
with this,
Syria.
but I have to because the Western press is literally just pretending like this ain't.
Oh yeah, the coast of Syria right today has been Jesus Christ.
So this area here, you see this? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Latakia and Tartus is where the Russians had their ports in Latakia, and the Alawites, who were part of, who were supporting Assad because he was an Alawite, are basically based here. And they they rose up and started reclaiming these areas. So they retook Latakia, they retook Tartus, and they were engaged in heavy clashes with HTS. And HTS responded by going fucking house to house and just executing Alawite civilians, just forcing people, dragging people into the streets, forcing them to howl like dogs and crawl on all fours before shooting them in the head, walking around shooting people in the feet, their arms, and then just executing them. And the reason I can tell you this with complete and utter fucking certainty that this is not just a report is because they motherfucking filmed themselves doing it, and I watched some of the footage. I could not watch much more of it. I'm cursed with the desire to be informed about what's going on in the world. And unfortunately, curiosity doesn't kill the cat, but the cat has pretty terrible PTSD from some of the horrible shit that the cat's seen. And I'm the fucking cat. So yeah.
I saw a video of them unloading into into windows.
Yeah.
Unloading like in a line.
There's
it wasn't even that
organized. I didn't watch it, but based on what I saw previously, I believe that the description is accurate of them just executing a child at point blank range. And they're like, I'm not saying, I've said enough thing about Israelis, but they don't film themselves doing that. I mean, they actually no, they did film themselves.
They do.
That. And they created that 72 Virgins channel. So the Israelis are as bad. But yeah, it's just they're not trying to hide this shit. They're filming themselves doing it, and they're promoting it. And so fortunately, I read about our good government. I read that the UK minister on this exact same day today said that he strongly condemns the Syrian government. Sorry, I read that wrong. The UK has lifted sanctions on 24 Syrian entities, including the central bank, in a landmark move that could be a turning point in Syria's devastated economy. Britain has become the first country to unfreeze all assets of the central bank of Syria. The state airline, the state-owned oil companies are amongst other previously sanctioned entities removed from the sanctions list on Thursday afternoon. According to Lamy, this approach underscores our commitment to help the people of Syria rebuild their country and economy, including through support for a Syrian-led and Syrian-owned political transition process, a UK government spokesperson said. This is the worst one. We will continue to judge Syria's interim authorities by their actions, not their words. So
liberalism is going to hand everyone to fascism on a silver fucking platter. Unless we stop them, then they're going to win.
So, there's that. So that's a grim one. And there's a deep irony to it because this is all made incredibly sobering just by the incredibly brutal action and footage. But it was quite funny prior to this that Israel Katz, the new defense minister of Israel, was justifying the invasion occupation of southern Syria, saying, well, we need to do it. Why? Because we need to ensure that southern Syria doesn't become southern Lebanon. So let's just do a little history lesson. Israel invaded and occupied southern Lebanon, and with the help of the Americans, the Lebanese state army became demilitarized. And this meant the Lebanese state army was unable to stop the rise of a militia group that would resist the occupation and end up becoming Israel's biggest and most dangerous foe. So to prevent this from happening, they invaded and occupied southern Syria. They demilitarized the country, meaning that the state army would not have the firepower to suppress any local resistance movements that would rise up. So they're basically doing absolutely everything they possibly could to turn southern Syria into southern Lebanon right now.
ruling over the fucking ruins. And yeah, it doesn't matter who we end up fucking. Well, I say we, who the Brits end up fucking working with. They will work with. I mean, what they want for Syria to be is basically the new Saudi Arabia, which is a state run by the most murderous gangster fucking wankers on the planet, but they also allow us to kill people at a long distance by basing our planes there, or being a node for fossil capital. And this is the deal, folks. People say, "Oh yeah, okay, wait, that can't happen." You know, we have a rules-based international order. That's gone. There's no longer a nuclear armed state holding anyone to account. It is a free for all, and the people doing it can be stopped because at the end of the day, we outnumber them.
They can be stopped, and like, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not allowed to say stuff. Maybe at some point we can go full torrent edition. But okay, just long burp here. But you know, various groups like our boys, the Martyr Izzeldin Al Khazan brigades, have already been subjected to the tip of the imperial spear first, and have demonstrated exceptionally effective means of resistance. The only problem is the innumerable human civilian cost, because the occupier, the imperialist acts they don't really approach this in a military way. If it's too tricky for them to approach the situation in a military way, they just use terrorism. And so we need to find way. The problem with Hamas, you know, I got in trouble even talking to people. But like the problem with Hamas, right, is that we haven't given them the weapons to shoot down F-35s, and they can't be shot down at the moment. So yeah, that's the big problem, is that we now know that the enemy has no depth they won't sink to, will just use terrorism. But the silver lining is, Hamas ain't gone nowhere. They ain't been defeated. This is really the first fucking like demonstrable domino here. It's not fallen.
Like, even in the worst circumstances possible for human to endure, they have endured it and they have fought back, and they have maintained a resilience which is a fucking light to the world. And to this extent, if you know, if they can face down the might of the entire imperial hegemon and its military and its outposts, we can fucking take a lazy cunt.
Yeah, exactly. The problem with the British is we're incredibly servile people. But like, that's the thing. It's not just like they're fighting Israel. They're fighting an unlimited amount of American weapons. They're fighting the entire US military industrial
and
complex.
British intelligence coming out of Cyprus.
And British intelligence. And like, yeah, the hideous and unbearable human cost due to not warfare, not military action, but just pure terrorism because of military inability and despite intelligence failures, despite us flying spy planes over it constantly, despite them having all this high-tech shit, they didn't know jack shit. I was reading recently that do you know why they didn't fucking know what the fuck was going on? Partly because they tried to infiltrate in 2018 and they got caught immediately, and they seized the handgun from the. Have you heard this story?
Was this when they went into Libya? No, was this when they went into Libya and then got caught? Or was this when they went to Syria?
No, they tried. They got into Gaza and they were immediately captured by Hamas's like elite whatever, and they seized the handgun from the thing, gave it to Yahya Sinwar, and when he was killed, he had that handgun on him that was captured in that counter operation. But they had no intelligence in Gaza, and they were listening to all the conversations. And I was reading the funniest article. They're like, the problem was we didn't understand Arabic culture at all, because like the problem is one of the biggest stories about this is why the reason Israel failed so much is because they were so blinded by their own racism. There's so many of the stories they didn't take the threat seriously because they thought stupid, silly Arabs, they can't do anything like that. They don't have that capability. They're just stupid, idiot Arabs. They could never pull anything like that off. And it turns out they did. Like, did you know they were building tunnels towards the wall constantly that they knew would be detected just to distract them? But what I was going to say before is I was listening to these conversations, but they were all just speaking in Quranic verses, and they didn't understand what it meant because they didn't take it seriously. So, like, the reason that they didn't know what was going on is because all the Hamas commanders just talk to each other in Quranic verses that have all of these meanings that they don't understand. So it's like, then even with all this shit, all this technology, all this stuff, they're not very good, are they? They believe in, and it's the same thing that we're talking about with like the Silicon Valley grift of like being sold all this stuff, the Adam Newmans of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, the fucking Elizabeth Holmes of the world. They're all fucking grifters, and people are grifted, and they believe all the hype, and they believe the shiny marketing, and they buy all this shit, and it doesn't really fucking work very well. And that's, I mean, the facial recognition software that's being tested here in Croydon probably doesn't. I mean, when you look into it, it doesn't really fucking work. And they don't need it to work because they just need it to go boop so they can say a machine says we have to frisk you. But still, like, the level of confidence in all this, like the reason people think, well, large language models, AI is going to take over and everything. The amount of confidence they have in all of this fucking architecture and apparatus versus how effective it actually is, there's a big gap there, and a very exploitable gap.
And that's why we can actually win, because these machines aren't actually that fucking smart. These people aren't actually all that powerful. At the end of the day, they're outnumbered.
And
they're
also
scared.
They have this there too, yeah. And they're motivated by misanthropy. They trust machines more than they trust people. They don't believe in people. That's why they believe in machines. They hate
if anything,
people.
you can be optimistic, because you know what, we can actually win this.
Yeah. And they seem to be quite good, at least in America and in Argentina, at wrecking and in Israel, wrecking their own house. Like, there's this meme going around where, like, you know, what is it, like Xi Jinping, like, do imperial strategy, do
nothing, win.
Yeah, it's like, you know, do we just see if they've got enough rope to hang themselves with all this, or if they just all turn on each other and tear themselves apart? But I guess people probably hope that about the Nazis, and, you know, the French intellectuals didn't take them seriously. And I'm trying not to make that mistake, but the bloke's name is fucking Lucky Palmer Lucky, for fuck's sake. Like, it's like you can criticize those French intellectuals for not taking Hitler and Nazis and Mussolini seriously, but you can't criticize me for not taking someone called Palmer fucking Lucky who wears Hawaiian shirts, or fucking Elon fucking Musk, or Javier Chainsaw Malay, or fucking Big Balls, or whoever the fuck is destroying the American government right now. How this is the hardest part. I have to take these people seriously, apparently.
Yeah, like, everyone's like, oh, it's so online, Adam, you're just too online. And I'm like, yeah, but there's literally a man called Big Balls. Sorry, a 19-year-old called Big Balls for some reason, who has like the ability to cut off your nan's healthcare if you live in the States, or even likely your healthcare. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. Turns out, like, a lot of bored like billionaires were just like really into their phones, and the phones, they just saw a lot of stuff on their phones that basically convinced them that fascism was a good idea, which is always going to do anyway, because they're all like, usually like Peter Thiel and Musk, fucking white South Africans who think that the end of apartheid was a bad thing. So this is also another lesson. Don't, make sure you finish what you fucking start. If we properly denazified Germany, we wouldn't be in this fucking mess, would we?
Yeah.
If every company that backed Hitler, IG Farben, you can still buy a fucking Mengele tractor.
And yeah, but was that his family before Joseph?
Oh, yeah, it was his family with Joseph, but at the same time, I would also say that every company that backed Hitler, from IG Farben to IBM to Siemens, which they all have lovely little statements on their website about how bad they feel about Nazism. But to be honest, they should have been broken up, and essentially we should have let Russia take the rest of Germany.
Name, you know what I mean?
No, they're not. Sorry. Yeah.
And but also, like, it's worse than that, because it wasn't just the fucking companies; it was the actual dude, the fucking people. They got transported to America for Operation Paperclip, but then a bunch of them got transported back, and was like the fucking chancellor in 1960. Like, there were some high-ranking guys in the German government who had literally been in the fucking Nazi party just like 20 years later, or 15, 20 years later. There's really not much of an attempt made, it seems.
But on that mode of hope, struggle, and also just futile bollocks of all of it.
But also, as one last parting point,
Yeah.
it kind of doesn't really matter whether it's denazified or not, because what's becoming increasingly clear, I think, is that like we didn't oppose the Holocaust because there was some moral issue with it. We were just fighting against Germany for geopolitical reasons. We could have been on the side that supported it. Like the architecture of all of that shit was already in settler colonialism and in colonialism, the shit that we were doing abroad, the shit that America was doing. It just happened to be the thing about the Germans is they like when they get into something, they take it very seriously. And like they really go for it. Like what they were doing in like Namibia, like they were trying to catch the fuck up. They were like, I can do this well. They take it really seriously. But it could have been any of our countries. We had all the DNA, everything set up to do the same, to go the same fucking direction. And that's why we're still able to drift into this direction, because all the pieces were there. They just have to be pushed, just has to come to shove. But like Adam said, we can beat them.
We can beat them. Twist, you might as well split this into 2 episodes. This is like a 2-hour boy.
I can't see that. Oh, it's in the top left. Yeah, it is 2 hours.
I think we can split this into 2 episodes. This will be so if you're still around for part 1, then part 2 you got to come for the meat of it. Also, I'll be linked to the bottom of this. I mean,
been sat here for 2 hours. I didn't realize.
Okay, we need to liberate Scarlet, Conrad. Okay, right. In this case, we will sign off of this note.
All right,
we can beat the bastards. We all put together. We can drown the bastards. Thank you for listening.
Here's no PubGoth transmission. So there's no instructable per se this week. Just like there was no guest, and to be honest, it was mainly just 2 grumpy blokes whinging, ranting, and making pessimistic predictions about the future. But let's check in on how things are going. So, on previous episodes, previously on PubGoth transmission, I planted these little seeds for chilies. I think I showed the planting of the Scotch bonnet seeds. Quite frankly, all of these have gotten mixed up. I don't know which is which. And on another episode, I transferred the seedlings into these pots. Now, one of the wonders of working with homemade compost is that you end up with a lot of seeds in there that randomly germinate. So you plant one thing and then you water it and another thing pops up. And when I planted those extra seeds directly into these pots for where the Scotch, I think, one of them only one had survived. Stuff popped up, but it wasn't chilies. It was actually 2 tomatoes just popped up. These 2 tomatoes popped up where I planted chilies. I'm not complaining because I grow tomatoes as well, and that's what the second half is. I use exactly the same technique as showed on PubGoth transmission to plant these tomato seedlings. They're now doing pretty well, so I've got all these tomatoes. I've mixed all of these up. I don't know what's what. I'm just going to grow them out and see what's what. I can make some predictions, but based on the leaves, that looks like a pepper because they have broader, rounder leaves. This one could be a red chili, I think. This could be a Scotch bonnet. I mean, again, I don't know. I got them mixed up early on. This looks like a tomato. I think this is another tomato. Going to be more of a tomato led. I might actually need to plant more chilies because so much of my chilies have just turned out to be tomatoes. The joys of using homemade compost. So anyway, that's a bit of an update, but there is a major instructable coming. So do please tune into the next episode of PubGoth Transmission, where there'll be a real big boy instructable coming your way for an absolutely crucial life skill. You're going to want to tune in.